Here we go. So, welcome back to the Unconventional Money Moves Podcast. I got my boy Connor, the Duck Man, with us today. And Connor comes on because we met a couple years ago. I think Connor found me on Instagram somehow and we started chatting. And he's been taking a very unconventional route in terms of growing a business, which is duck hunting. I don't know exactly what Connor does. He does a little bit of everything. I see his videos. He's doing duck calls and he's created a successful business. So I'm happy for him to share what that journey's been like in terms of basically what you took a hobby and turned it into a full-time business. Is that what it ended up happening?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks, Josh, for even having me on. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and hopefully, if nothing else, somebody can benefit, or learn one or two things today. Unconventional is definitely a very good way to describe what we do. But if you look around in the world, I think that the sooner you recognize that people that are successful are all successful for different reasons, the sooner that you're going to find your own success. I think that there's a lot of people out there that they look at different people's success and try and copy it, and a lot of times you fall short because you're trying to be somebody that you're not. So I definitely was able to find something I was passionate about and surround myself with other people that are like-minded and kind of have the same goals, and it's actually worked out pretty well. So to answer your question and kind of bounce off of what you were saying as far as what we do, I actually started a guiding and outfitting service. So we start in Michigan for part of the year. We guide turkey hunters in the spring, and it's really spun off into becoming so much more than just providing hunts for people. It's the entire experience. So we do lodging and meals and have a chef that comes in and cooks for us, and really we're catering to everybody from the moment that they arrive from the airport, or heck, we'll even pick you up from the airport. But it's really become an entire big process. It's not just something simple like it looks like, oh, we're just going hunting or whatever. There's actually a lot more to it, to the picture. But that's where it doesn't really matter what service you provide. You're providing the service to make it easier on somebody else, and that's how the business works. So do the turkey hunts in the spring, and then we do waterfowl hunts like you mentioned, ducks and geese and stuff like that in the fall and winter months. And the toughest part about starting a business is actually keeping, especially a seasonal one like that, is keeping cash flow year round. Because obviously, the couple months that we're busy, turkey season's only the end of April, all of May, and a week into June. And then obviously bird hunting, we start September, October, and season goes till February, but things kind of slow down through the winter sometimes. So you have to, come up with some other streams of income. Um, Oops, somebody's trying to call me. I'll have to put them to voicemail.
Yeah, tell him you're on a
Sorry.
podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, just want to make sure it didn't cut out. So that's where running into those little bumps and hiccups in the road, and learning how to traverse them and come out on top. Because there's times you get hit in the mouth and get knocked down a little bit. Running a business, that's for sure, especially in the startup years. And with the economy and situations that we have with everything costing what it does. I think a lot of people use it and look at it as an excuse, and it's like if you're trying to get sympathy for stuff, that's time that you should be spending, trying to row your boat a little bit harder, and then you come out on top. So definitely has been a interesting thing, and a lot of learning. So I've always enjoyed, obviously, following along, like you mentioned, to your own social media stuff, and everybody's different ways. Obviously your business is much different than mine, and that's totally okay. So it's always good, to pick up on a few things here or there. So that's probably a good little intro. If you got anything else you want to kind of rock and roll with, we'll keep rolling.
No, that was perfect. I mean, in terms of getting this business off the ground, like was it just basically did you have someone be like, "Hey, Connor, I want you to take me out hunting. Like, what does it cost?" And you're just like, "Oh, just pay for the supplies." How did you make that adjustment to turn it from something like just getting started to turning into something that's actually profitable?
Yeah, so that was obviously the biggest hurdle of all, probably. And honestly, like I said, I didn't even really recognize the need or demand for the services that we provide now until I was exposed to it. Whether it be other people and other outfits across the country that I was able to work with, or even close to home here. My mom kept telling me, she's like, you have a lot of people that are taking advantage of something you're good at, and it's costing you a lot of money. You should look into doing something about it. So I would say, I was probably 18 or 19 at the time, just into college, and still again trying to find my way. And who isn't still trying to find their way? Even when you're established, there's always things that change. But I started out a lot of work with like disabled and wounded veteran organizations, I guess, like Waterfowlers for Warriors and Operation Injured Soldier, and then like taking a lot of youth out. And we still do both of those things. We take a lot of veterans and active duty and first responders and that sort of thing with the business now. And then obviously it's important to give back to the kids. But the roundabout answer is that's kind of where I started, was working with groups like that. And then as we spun off into just taking buddies and then taking all the veterans and the kids, we're like, okay, how can we do this on a bigger scale? Because at the end of the day, it does still cost a lot of money. So we were trying to figure out, where does that money come from? So now at this point, we're able to take a lot of outdoorsmen and sportsmen from across the country, and then we still are able to either fit in a lot of veterans into those groups, or have set days that we're able to still take out entire groups of those guys and still give back, because ultimately that's why I started doing what I'm doing, is to be able to give back to not only the veterans, but also there's nothing better than sharing that experience with a kid that's never done it before, and even heck, even adults that have never done it before. You're able to show them something and teach them things. You see their eyes light up and you're like, okay, we know we did something right here.
Totally. And I mean, when it comes to that experience, like, what does that look like when someone signs up with you to take them on this exploration of
Sure.
everything? And it seems like you got a little bit of white glove service there. You'll pick someone up from the airport and give them the whole experience.
Yeah, so obviously, like I mentioned, there's a need or a service, for a lot of different things. And so throughout the years of kind of refining what we do, we've definitely been able to recognize that there's some people that might not want that white glove service. They might be working on a little bit tighter budget, or that's just not their style. So we have more affordable options for, say, more of the blue collar guy, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We still provide them the same attention that they deserve for everything that they're looking for, and then obviously all the way up to more so a lot of corporate groups, lawyers, doctors, other businessmen, and stuff like that. Because the lodge is actually a really good place for people to either say thanks for people doing business together, or other networking opportunities. It's hard to be upset when you're in a setting like that, so it works out very well that we're able to host people like that. So that's where more of that, like you said, white glove services. I always joke with people when they call to book something like that. I'm like, we'll pretty much do everything from the time you walk in the lodge, everything but tie your shoes. And if you want your shoes tied too, I'm sure we can make that happen. But it's just kind of a good lightning thing to say, because it really is pretty luxurious. But it's a cool thing to be able to provide all those services for people, because they're always so grateful to experience it. So.
Mm-hmm. So like, what's like starting the business? What was like step one for you? What was like that first like mistake that you made that you're like, we got to fix this in order to keep things rolling? What was that first hurdle look like?
I mean, I think the first big hurdle is just recognizing the expense involved. I mean, between the miles that we're driving for fuel and wear and tear on vehicles and purchasing equipment, and then we actually do a lot of work with other private property landowners, farmers, and stuff of that sort. Recognizing how expensive it is and how to fund that was the first hurdle. And now that I've been in business a couple of years, like the sooner you're able to recognize and diagnose those problems and come up with a solution so that you aren't digging yourself in a hole, the faster you're going to be back on the upside, so that you aren't, down in the valley for too long. So that was definitely the first big hurdle. And so that's where, saying, okay, well, now we need to figure out who's going to come in and pay for these services so that, we're not just doing it for free, basically, or going into the negative, more than anything. So that kind of started the ball turning. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we actually legitimately do this? Because there are, from a proportionate standpoint, there's a lot more people that kind of just fly by the seat of their pants in guiding and outfitting. They might not have, an actual LLC or company, probably operating without liability insurance, and, not doing tax stuff, and, all the fun stuff of business that's necessary if you're going to actually be a player for more than a year or two. Well, really at all. I mean, it's really not okay to cut corners at all. But that's where it got the ball turning. Where we're like, okay, well, how does this process look? So we started the LLC. Actually, one of my clients or customers, specialized in liability insurance, so that happened to work out. And that kind of can lead off in another thing maybe later we can talk about with connections. But getting the liability insurance and, the business stuff, and then you're meeting with business bankers, and, it's just there's so many steps and layers to business that, they don't really tell you about. I mean, I went to college, but I didn't study business. I got a degree in biology, so that, obviously was not real helpful in this whole process. But you surround yourself with other like-minded people, and the people that want to see you succeed, have zero issue with helping out. They're not going to do it for you, and I'm not saying that I wanted somebody to do it for me. That's not at all it. But they're going to say, hey, these are the things that I did to be successful, and these are a few steps you're going to want to take. Because, or the internet's a great resource too. I mean, there's plenty of great resources out there, so that you're, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and, always taking steps forward. So that's where I think people see like the success of a business, or whatever. And, it doesn't necessarily show, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You're seeing the Z where you got to, but you're not seeing all the bumps and hiccups in the road that it took to get there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I started out, I had no idea what I was doing, and I quickly learned you could be the best at something. However,
Mm-hmm.
if no one knows how to find you,
Right.
then it's pretty much worthless. So you could have all the skills in the world. However, if you don't know how to find people to attract to your business, you're basically
A nobody.
worthless
Yeah.
or a nobody. So, I mean,
Yep.
like, how did you start the business? Was it just like money you saved? I know you said mentioned business bankers. Did you get a business loan? Did you throw it on credit cards like some people do?
No, so fortunately, I didn't have to take any like major loans or anything out as far as that goes. And that's another good, conversation for this is, trying to leverage, going into debt and, taking loans out and that sort of thing, versus, like you said, saving some money or whatever. Because like the business stuff and money, it's almost a game. Like you kind of have to learn what the banks want to see, because if you don't, if you don't have enough money coming in, or like a lot of businesses especially hide a lot of cash, they don't actually know what's going on with your business. They're going to be very lenient, to give you any money to actually work with, even if you can be like, hey, look, like this is all the cash I've got. They don't really care. So, starting things out, I mean, I'd obviously been doing the hunting and stuff like that with the kids and veterans and whatnot for a long time. So I did already have a good chunk of equipment set aside to get things rolling. Now that being said, I guess we're 3, 4 years into actual legitimate business now. We've come a very long way with the equipment that we've accumulated. But it's kind of just been, as seasons roll on and we are able to make more money, I just reinvest that money back into buying more equipment and new toys for work stuff, because it's a hard line of works. I mean, you kind of have to keep phasing old equipment out, new equipment in, and keep that rotation so that everything is safe, and B, it looks good when your customers come in, because you don't want them coming into a big clapped out rig where they're like, what did we just sign up for, And that's where the people that are cutting corners and price shopping, and they're going with the cheapest service, I hate to say you have to expect that, but that's kind of what you're signing up for. So, by charging a premium, we have to provide a premium service, or else people aren't going to be real tickled. So just getting things going. I mean, like I said, we started out with what we could afford, and the best that we could get at that time. And I'm not saying that because we had like any garbage equipment by any means, but definitely, you have to do the best you can with what you got at the time. And now, fortunately, I mean, I can say, we really do try to purchase the best stuff that we can, because it really does reflect on your reputation. So not only does it help make you successful in the field, but it also looks good on paper too.
Yeah, and when you were taking people out on these first expeditions, did you already have it planned out? Were you kind of just like winging it? Like, what was that like? Were you nervous?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors to guiding and outfitting, especially as a younger adult. It can be super overwhelming if you aren't real familiar with the process. And it's not that you aren't confident in your abilities, but there's just a lot of factors that are out of your control. So just with waterfowl hunting, ducks and geese especially, I mean, they migrate thousands and thousands of miles, right? So they might be here one day, and then you could have somebody set up to go hunt the next day, and then all of a sudden you have a 20-mile-an-hour north wind, and everything's like, yep, we're heading to Mexico now. And you go and sit out there in the cold the next morning, and don't see anything, and you're like, well, they were here yesterday. But at the end of the day, you can't control that. So that's where there's always going to be factors with that, and weather, and things that you can't control. But the more that you do it, the repetition and time that you put in, you learn to kind of address those things, and find where there's a better opportunity that there are less of a likely to leave. um, but getting going, and setting things up, like you said earlier, you have to find people that want to go first. And then starting the business, you have to find people that actually want to pay for the service. And so that's where, like, actually looking legitimate and being legitimate is critical. um, because if you don't look good, and you aren't able to communicate the services you provide in an effective manner, people are going to see right through that. So definitely getting going. You don't have like the word of mouth advertising of years and years of services provided to be a good advertising for you, so you have to go out and get it yourself. So starting out, we did a lot of work, obviously, like I said, with those veteran organizations. You'd have scheduled days that they were planning to be there, so they could find the people that are going to be coming with their groups. And then we'd plan to have them out and provide the services for them. And then obviously, we started out running a lot smaller groups of people, because that's all we could get to go. But it's hard to cover expense that way, obviously, but it's good exposure, and it's kind of necessary to start scaling the business, and actually growing. So as that kind of went on, a couple people come and hunt with you and pay, and they have good experiences. Well, next year they say, hey, we're going to bring back 6 people instead of 2. And then the next year there's 10 people instead of 6. And next thing you know, they're like, well, we have 18 people. What do we do? You only hunt with 10 at a time. I'm like, well, we'll just run 2 groups of people. And so then you hire on more help. And that's kind of where the scaling has gone, and has really been very beneficial. But obviously, like I was kind of talking about with the legitimacy, I used to have to type everything out longhand of dates we had available, and just a lot of steps and legwork of the beginning stages of booking. And now we're to the phase where we have a very, very nice functioning website, and the dates are all available there, and the pricing's all there, and the discounts for veterans and first responders and that sort of stuff is already available. So we don't have to worry about anything like that. It's like it's set in stone, so there's no arguing, or anything left to question what's going on. So that's where people that, like I said, are very willing to pay for a service and want to pay for a service. They want to see that. It makes them feel reassured that their money's going to a good place, because there's so many places that unfortunately take advantage of people like that. And I mean, even today I had somebody like, oh, well, we went to Missouri last year and had a terrible experience. And so then they're even more leery to go again somewhere else because they're like, well, we spent X amount of dollars last year, and they probably should have paid us X amount of dollars for the time that we had. Because people don't look at it as the customers investing time and energy too. I mean, time off and travel and all those expenses, that's a big deal. Time away from families and whatever. It's a very big deal, and it's supposed to be a getaway and a vacation for them. You don't want them to be stressed out and feel like they got taken advantage of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, everyone's been taken advantage of at least once. And if you haven't been taken advantage of, you probably did and didn't even realize it.
Yeah, that's right.
With that being said though, like how have you turned like a negative trip? Like maybe it started off a little rocky and like spun it around to like change the dynamic a bit.
Sure. Well, like obviously this is a big customer service industry. So that being said, you're dealing with a lot of different people. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, in the fall we're doing, 10 to 30 hunters a day. In turkey season we have multiple camps running and lots of people in and out. And then in my off seasons, like I was talking about cash flow type things, I'll go and work in other states too. You're dealing with people every single day and new people every day. I will 100% say I can normally tell how the course of the morning is going to go when I meet you either at the dock or at the road when we meet for the morning. Some people, I don't know what it is. Like you can just tell by their attitude and then how they shake their hand or their introduction. You're like, oh boy, you could give them the whole wide world, and everything that they dreamed of and so much more, and they're still just going to have a crabby attitude the whole time, no matter what. I personally can't say that I understand that. And I guess maybe if I did understand it, I'd be able to diagnose and fix it a little better. But definitely, some people, it's just like they're never happy, no matter, how good of a service you provide. And we strive to provide the same service every single day. I always say, a lot of our seasons are very long. We work long days and people get burnt out easily. We try to not get burnt out and provide the same exact service on day 60 or 90 as we did on day one, and provide the same care and attention, to every single person and be just as personable. So that's where I can say, like, okay, when you're crabby like that, Mr. Krabby Pants, it's not because we did you a disservice. We always do everything we can and so much more. But sometimes it just doesn't matter. It's an uphill battle the whole time. But that's a very small percentage of people. I mean, we're very fortunate to share lots of great experiences with people in the great outdoors. And so that's where, when we're out hunting or fishing or whatever the case may be, it's a pretty easy environment to have a good time for the most part.
So like when you're working with these different groups, do y'all have like a script where you like will tell the same joke like some trips do, or is everything like more organic on your end, or just like a combination of both? Because sometimes like I go
um
on these trips and I'm just like, I know you've told that joke before.
Right. I mean, I would definitely be guilty if I didn't say it was a little bit of a combination of both. Um, Obviously, dealing with people or working with people, dealing with sounds terrible. Working with people every day, it is important to make the experience about the customer. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they just turn the script around and they're like me, 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 and you're like, wait a minute, that's not why these people are here. Like they're not here to be with you. They're here for the experience. So that's where the scripted part, I would definitely say, is important to ask where are you from? What do you do? What are you looking for, or what do you expect out of this experience? What are some things that would make it better, or things that you wouldn't be happy with, or whatever. That might be a little bit more scripted. But that's just really understanding the person, because once you understand the person and you at that point you kind of know what you're working with, the rest of the conversation flows a lot more naturally. And I guess what I mean by that is, I might have different conversations with a group of 25 to 30-year-old guys on a bachelor trip than, the 65 to 80-year-old old timers that, this is their reunion that they do every year, and The only reason I say that is because those people are very different. I would say, I guess, in maturity level, in their hobbies or lifestyles. Um, and that's where you just have to learn to communicate differently, and those are the things that they don't really teach you in school. That's just the, like I said, the repetition and being around it, that you're able to pick up on those things. Because if I were to take that group of 65 to 80 year olds and start slang talking and joking around, that like I would with guys that are my age, they're not going to be happy, they're probably not going to tip very well, and they're more than likely not going to come back. So that's where, the customer service side of things, you just have to learn to hold yourself to a high standard to where you can, really communicate and interact, and make it very personable.
Yeah, and that goes for any business. You
Yes,
have to
yes,
learn how
exactly.
to speak the language of the person that you're interacting with rather than hope they understand the language that you're speaking. And if you
Right.
can master that skill, you can pretty much work with it almost anyone, except those people who are just always what was the word you used? Crabby.
Yeah, exactly. You're spot on, and that's the cool thing about the customer service industry. Like you just said, it doesn't matter what line of work you're in, that is never going to change.
Yeah, you always gotta like figure out what experience do they want rather than being being selfish and doing what you want to do because it's not your trip. Even though like you enjoy doing it, you got to make sure you're giving them the experience that they're searching for. And whether you're 25 or 65, that experience is going to be a little bit different. And then the one thing I really like that you mentioned, Connor, is they're not going to come back. And
Right.
recurring customers is paramount for a company's success. So, I mean, would you say most of your customers are now like recurring customers in your business?
Yep, I definitely would say so. A lot of it, and not even just here. Like I was saying, I mean, I fill my other months with other work across the country doing similar things. A lot of it too, they'll not only hunt with you at your business, but they're also going to go hunt with you, just so they can hunt with you other places, or fish with you other places. Like running the charter boat in Florida, I've had guys that hunted with me in Kansas 3 or 4 years ago. They're like, "Hey, we're in Florida. Where are you at? And what availability do you have?" And next thing you know, they're bringing not only themselves but their whole family too, because they're on a family trip, and they're like, it feels good that they feel welcome enough that they can bring their wife and their kids, and the whole spectrum, on experiences like that, because they know that you're going to cater to their exact needs. And honestly, the repeat business is huge, because not only does it save you a bunch of money in advertising, it saves you a lot of time too. And it's a lot easier to put your time towards taking care of those relationships with people, than trying to generate new ones. And not, excuse me, not that generating new ones is bad, because I mean that's obviously how your business is going to grow. But taking care of the ones that you have is huge, and it honestly opens a lot more doors than just that repeat business too. You never know what opportunities are going to open because of those connections.
So like in the beginning, Connor, were you like having the like call people to like book these trips? Did like things just start flowing naturally and just progressively get faster? Like how did that all work out?
I think the biggest thing was I had already been in the area for a long time, and I say area, it's pretty broad. I would just say the state of Michigan. I mean, I was born and raised here, and this is something that wouldn't really be as possible without social media and technology the way that we have it today. Because 50 years ago, you couldn't put up a picture and have thousands of people see it, from not just down the street or in another county or another city, but around the world, really. So just trying to kind of start a social media following at a little bit younger age, in the outdoor scene was very, very important. I think social media is a blessing and a curse, because it does take up a lot of time. You don't want it to, ruin your life or take up all your time. But in today's day and age, especially providing services to customers that aren't, in my town, it's really critical to have that social media presence. So I would just say the first couple of years, especially, were just from a lot of people that had, followed along for a while, or same thing, you start a personal connection with these people, and next thing they're like, hey, we see you doing waterfowl hunts, or see you turkey hunting or whatever, and you seem to be very proficient at it. Can you teach me a few things, or can we come do it with you, or whatever. And that's kind of how it started. And then within the last couple of years, again, starting a business, that's been a shift of my personal brand, if you want to call it that, or image, to the actual business's brand, because that's actually where I've been trying to put a lot more emphasis on growing that, rather than my personal brand, because the actual business brand is what's going to pay the bills. So, and I guess you can pay the bills with a personal brand. Obviously, I mean, you see that all over the place in today's society, in all different ways. Some a little bit heavier on morals than others. But that's neither here nor there. But obviously, focusing a lot more energy into growing the brand has been way more beneficial.
Yeah, and you're what, Michigan Duckman? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
and,
don't
and
hunt, but I watch your videos. I'm like, yo, that looks cool. I have no
right.
idea what you're doing, but I'm like, that looks real cool. And I mean, your following has grown exponentially. It seems like since I first met you, or at least doubled. I think you're at like over 60,000 people now on Instagram.
Yeah, and I guess, like, it's always, I I try and stay very humble, because, like, a number like that, like, people are always like, oh, like, you're Insta famous or whatever, and, like, I almost hate that word, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's not who I try to be. But like you said, at the end of the day, you do have to reach more people if you want to pay the bills and grow, your brand. But I don't know. I guess Instagram, social media, like, it's just, there's so many people that have followings that are just fake. So it's like, you don't want to be that, right? So that's where I get people that'll, like, send me a message in the direct messages on Instagram, and then, like, their first message to me is like, I'm surprised you responded, or something. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you have 6 followers or 60,000, like, you still have to treat every single person like the person that they are. It doesn't matter if they have a big question or a small question, their time is still worth something, and their effort is still worth something. And that's where people don't forget that. And that's how your reputation and brand, do grow for the better, rather than, I sent this guy 10 messages, and, he's just opened them and didn't respond, or hasn't opened them, or whatever. That's where, taking care of people is very, very critical.
Yeah, and how has Instagram, like posting those videos, impacted your business?
I mean, trying to think of what a good number for a percentage would be of people that, maybe book through Instagram, or whatever. I mean, half of our business, maybe, I would say, comes from Instagram, and the other half is from word of mouth, and other people that have hunted or fished with me across the country, maybe, or met at trade shows or whatever. But I mean, sheesh, that's why people are like, oh, like, I can't believe you post to Instagram as much as you do, or whatever. And it's like, well, it ultimately does pay my bills, so it's like, I kind of have to. If I could come up with another stream of advertising that was as simple and cost effective as Instagram, I would probably use Instagram less and use that more. But in today's day and age, it's a very, very effective way to reach people. And even, if you do want to start investing money into advertising, or the sponsored ads, or whatever they call them, you can actually really refine your target audience down to exactly who you want it to reach. And that's where, unless you're paying somebody big, big money on, Google for the SEOs, which that's a whole nother rabbit hole, they might miss their mark substantially. Like, I've obviously had a website for a while, and it's, pretty easy to find on Google. But a lot of people that call me, they're like, oh, are you a bait shop? Or, like, we want to buy minnows, or we want to buy life jackets, or, it's like, it's almost like Google has us labeled wrong. So that's something that over time is going to continue to get better, because the SEO stuff just takes a long time. Um, or a few years of being good about it anyway to get better rankings or whatnot. But for, like I said, for what it costs and how simple it is, you're almost a fool not to take advantage of Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had this sort of success that you have, but I mean, I just consistently post, and if you are authentic and you're putting out a good message, hopefully over time, you will be able to find the right people. And it seems
That's
like your
right.
business has skyrocketed. And I mean, that's how we even ended up here on this podcast. I don't know how you found me, but I think you founded me and you asked me like a few like um investment questions. And then
Hmm.
ultimately, like I was just like, your business is gonna be your best investment. And then I think after I told you that, you went ahead and like reinvested back into your business.
Yep. Yeah, because obviously, again, in startup years, and I don't know, I guess I can't speak for being decades down the road, obviously, since I haven't been there. But in the first startup years of business, I mean, you have to be very smart with where you put your money. You can't just go blowing it left and right and throwing it in all different avenues. You have to be very, very strategic, I guess is probably a good word to use, with where you're putting things, and that's where obviously the investing game, I mean, it's not a short-term haul. So the sooner you can get started in it, the better your return is going to be, hopefully. Obviously, I mean, I think you'd probably agree to that. I mean, there's some that you can probably flip quicker than others, but that's the fun of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any skill. It takes time. You can learn any skill in a few hours, but I mean, it takes a lifetime to master it. And I mean, that's what you're constantly doing. You're crafting your skill, you're getting constantly better, and you're getting rewarded by having return customers, by growing your following, by giving people the experience that only Connor can give them and they can't get it anywhere else. So I feel like that's what has really separated you from other people. And I'm glad to have you on the Unconventional Money Moves podcast. I felt like that was a good nugget to give people and to leave off. But other than that, I mean, Michigan Duckman on Instagram is, and then I mean, your company's what, like Great Lake Outdoors? Is that
Yep, Great
right?
Lakes Guided Outdoors. Yep,
Okay, I was close. I was going off the top of the dome,
that's
just
right.
freestyle, and I couldn't remember everything. But I'm glad to have you on. Thanks for sharing the insight, Connor, and how you turned a passion into a successful business. And if you want to go, what is it, waterfowl hunting, or
Yep.
I don't know all the terms, but Connor's definitely your man.
Cool. Well, like I said, Josh, already, I do appreciate your time, and if nothing else, hopefully somebody could pick up on one or two things anyway through all that. And obviously, like we already discussed, I mean, we both are very, very reachable people. So if you have questions about anything, we both could be very good resources. Or if I don't know the answer, I'm sure somebody I know does.
For sure. Well, glad to have you on. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys.